So this one has to do with a lot of the backlash that the company known as Shea Moisture received because of its ad promoting like inclusivity, basically. So for those who don't know, I'm going to give you the backstory. Therefore, there's some context behind it, and then we can kind of dive into it. So basically, they put out a series of ads, like a number of them, maybe like 5 or 6 of them, basically. But there's one ad in particular that had a lot of people kind of giving them the side eye, basically. So essentially, what happened was there was an ad that was promoting stories about how, hair care and hair growth and what have you impacted their lives. So you have one woman who was biracial, so she was most likely half black, half white, basically discussing how growing up it was hard to accept yourself because of her hair, how people would tease her for having like kinky hair and how they would tug at it and pull at it and what have you. But then you had another woman who was Caucasian talk about how she didn't know whether she wanted to dye her hair blonde or red and she didn't feel right in her natural hair color or something like that. So when people caught wind of that, I know, right? So when people caught wind of that, like Twitter erupted, Black Twitter, and I hate that term, I don't know why I do, but it's not my thing. But it's just like, yeah. So it's like Twitter erupted basically, and people were calling for a boycott of the entire line altogether. So Shea Moisture immediately, responded, and they apologized for how it came across, and they let it be known that it wasn't their intentions. Now, what was even more interesting is that one of the owners of Shea Moisture went on the Breakfast Club radio show earlier today and basically discussed the plan behind their vision, essentially. And basically, just to sum up everything, the man basically said that he still wants to stick to their core audience, which is black women. But at the same time, while they're still engaged with their core audience, they also want to expand at the same time to a larger reach to bring more people into their business, of course, to profit more off of it, which makes sense because at the end of the day, when you have a business, you want to see it grow, you want to see it thrive, you want to cater to your main core because that is like the pinnacle, the fabric of how you're going to earn your money. But at the same time, you want to see if you can expand as well. It's like a company that majors in, let's say, music, but then they want to open up a department in film and television and what have you. So again, it's all about expanding the reach, which I completely understood. But nonetheless, let's get into it right now. So Jolie, what was your opinion on the whole matter at hand?
Okay, well, being that I'm into marketing, I understand them wanting to expand their market to a broader audience. Obviously that makes a profit for the company, more money. The outrage was a lot. I do think the outrage was a lot.
Yeah.
I find that they'll go on one day boycott. Oh, I'm going to boycott this. They're upset, and then they forgot about it the next day.
Right.
So that's my issue with that.
Right.
In terms of the company, they definitely could have done a different approach with that commercial.
Right.
A light-skinned girl with, grade 3 hair.
Yeah.
Her struggle might not be as bad as some other women that, the product caters to.
Right.
Especially, and, for white women, she's having trouble with dyeing her hair. That's the worst.
Right.
That's the worst struggle she has there. Seriously, there's just so much more, women like myself, where we have a more kinkier texture.
Yeah.
We get perms, and we're almost afraid to cut off our perm just because of how we're gonna look, how's my hair gonna be.
Exactly.
The shrinkage is very real when we put in wash our hair, just certain things like that. They could have at least tried to put somebody with my kinkier hair texture in the commercial, somebody that's not someone a bit darker, fair skin, just so that the whole commercial made sense.
Right.
I doubt there'd be as much outrage if that was the case.
Right. I think in going back to that point, I think it's really important to mention that there are multiple commercials that they put out at the same time.
Yes, I did see it.
Yeah. So the commercials or ads or clips on Instagram and what have you. And I think it's just that one that they focused on. And I don't think it's because of the fact that it had I think it's because it had a white woman in it. Yeah. But I think it's even more because of the fact that her story didn't really equal up to the other girl's story, right? So I get it. Inclusivity, I'm all for it, right? Each one teach one. I'm all about that. But I think they should have done a better job of outlining the specifics of it. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied right now. Freudian slip. But yeah, the specifics of their stories and what have you. So if you're going to have someone talk about how they didn't feel right in their natural hair color, then align that with somebody else's story that is equal to that.
Exactly.
Because that's more of, and I don't want to downplay that person's dilemma and what have you, but when you're talking about someone who feels like they don't fit in society because of their hair texture, what have you, that's a bit more serious. It's almost like comparing a kid who can only eat one meal per day versus someone who is complaining because they had a burger instead of steak.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you want to keep the equivalents at equal level, basically.
Yeah.
But as far as like the outrage, what have you, like I'm gonna boycott. See, this is what happens when black-owned companies get a little bit of money, they move over to the white man, F the white man. And it's just like,
I like, to me, exactly. It's a lot. I did see someone mention that, you know, black people buy a lot from, say, white designers.
Thank you. And that's my thing, right? And that's my thing right there. If you're gonna boycott this, then go all in. Boycott H&M for that, if that's the case. Boycott Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, all these white owners that you feel oppressed by. Boycott them all. Don't just start with the black ones. Start with the white ones. Boycott BET. Boycott every NBA franchise that's owned by a black guy, which means the Toronto Raptors, etc., etc. You know what I mean? So it's like, don't be a hypocrite. Like go all in if that's the case. Right.
Yes, I do think Shea Moisture, they should have stuck, if they're going to add white women, or if they're going to target white women in that commercial, they should have just kept it all white women. You know, they threw on that light skin girl with the different problems. So they should have just kept it to one, just so people don't get it misconstrued. Misconstrued.
And that's the best part of like what the gentleman addressed when he was on his radio interview. He basically addressed that dilemma and how they kind of took a misstep when they did that. And so that he said going forward, we'll make sure that we kind of iron out those wrinkles and then kind of make it more make it more clear about what they're trying to promote specifically, rather than just be general. Otherwise, it gets lost in translation. So I'm glad that he owned up to it and what have you. Like it took a lot of courage to that, and like he wasn't being belligerent or defiant about it either. Like he recognized he made a mistake, but then at the same time he also called the task of some of the people, hey, like don't sleep on us. Like we're still here for you, basically, and like there's no need to call for a boycott or anything like that. So he kept it very civil. Is what I appreciate about it.
I have to go listen to that.
Oh yeah, no, it's a good one. Like, I heard it earlier today actually, so I'm like, oh okay, cool. It's coming with some sense.
Exactly. That's right.
But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, listening at home, we're watching this on YouTube later on. What do you guys think? Hit me up on Twitter at DM_cool or cool_radio to share your thoughts. Cool.